What is up, guys? Another episode of the Real Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Freddie Hart, and I'm here with
Gideon and Freddie.
And so today we kind of wanted to talk about leadership. Leadership is something that when I was in middle school and high school, I know I dealt with not only trying to be a leader, but the good qualities of a leader, because we hear a lot of things and we hear a lot of people try to tell us how to be a good leader. But some of the qualities that sometimes people say I don't necessarily agree with. And based on the scripture that Gideon's going to talk about, we can really go in depth to that. So when it comes to a good leader, or what have you seen when it comes to good leadership characteristics, whether it be football, I know you've seen leadership there, or just outside of there?
I think the best leaders are those who are not only willing to tell you, but are willing to show you. And I think we see that in the scriptures. In John 13, we see Jesus as a servant leader. Up until that point, before he washed his disciples' feet in John 13, he was a leader that told them what to do. He was a leader that showed them what to do as well, but he also washed their feet. And I think that's important because back in the ancient Near East, they didn't have shoes like we have, like Freddie has. Freddie got every shoe in the world. But Jesus had Air Jesuses on. He had sandals on, and he would walk around in the Near East desert sun with dirt and animals walking around, and you can only imagine them just using the restroom anywhere. So like their feet were dirty, and they're having their last meal together, and Jesus washes his disciples' feet. He takes off his outer robes. He's basically in his undergarments, and he gets down on his knees and he washes his disciples' feet for the last time. And basically that shows the ultimate sign of humility, that the God of the universe who came down and lived amongst humanity would wash the feet of his disciples, of his people, the people that he made with his own hands. He washed their feet, and that shows ultimate leadership in my opinion, to show somebody, to tell somebody, to show somebody, and to be able to be humble enough to serve somebody. So I would say leadership is telling, showing, and serving. I think that's what good leadership is.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that. We always hear that we always hear that when there's a leader, like the people underneath them work for the leader. Yeah. But if you look at the story of Jesus and you look at the disciples, he tells them, he says, "Come and I will make you fishers of men." So I think that one thing that we always talk about, that I think it's more the reverse. I think a great leader, their number one job is to make other people as effective as possible. And if you even, because the Last Dance documentary has been coming out, Michael Jordan got Dennis Rodman on the team, and he necessarily wasn't just trying to say, "Dennis, you're on my team. This is what you're going to do." He brought Dennis Rodman on the team, and he said, "I want to make you as effective as possible, so I want you to focus on your strengths and do everything and try to be the best at that." So that's one characteristic I've really seen when it comes to leadership, that a great leader isn't always worried about just people working for them. It's how can they make them effective at what they do best.
I agree. That's good.
Yeah. So another thing that I've always seen is, so you played football, so you can attest to this. Have you heard people before say, "Oh, I want the type of coach who's going to lead a team and who's going to let their coaches do their job, but at the end of the day, when it comes fourth quarter, I want him to take the headphones off his assistant and say, these are the plays we're going to call"? I mean, I assume that you've seen that before.
I've seen that a bunch of times. I've seen that on the high school level. I've seen that on the college level. And I think the coaches that I had on both levels did that pretty well. And we respected them for it because we know what the script says. But you want that coach that has that gut feeling like, "Hey, man, we're going to go for it on fourth down." Even though everything in the tendency say punt the ball or kick the field goal, when they say, "Hey, you know what? Hey, let's go for it," I think that's an awesome sign of like, "Hey, I'm a risk taker. I'm going to take a chance to see what we can actually do." So I think that's a good part of leadership as well.
Now, let me ask you, when it comes to leadership, when do you think a leader should give the people who they have under them the role or task that they need to do? So, for example, a head coach, when should he say, "Hey, you're the offensive coordinator, do what you have to do. You're the defensive coordinator, do what you have to do. I'm not even going to jump in"?
I think a good leader allows the people under him to shine and do what they're made to do when they built trust with him. So in the disciples' point of view, he was with them for 3.5 years, and he taught them a lot of things, and they just watched him. And then there's times where he's like, "Hey, y'all go do this, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to review it." And then I think there's times where he just let them go and figure it out. And by the time he got there, he was able to say, "Hey, this is the last time y'all going to have dinner with me. This is the last time you're going to be with me. And y'all are ready to take this ministry that I have to the next level. You're ready to go on without me. That's why he promised him the Holy Spirit. And he knew, and they didn't fully know in that moment, but they were ready to go on and do what God had made them to do, because he spent 3 years with them. He prepared them. He gave them everything they needed to go on and to lead the ministry the way that he believed it was going to go. So I think that's true for anybody in any kind of leadership. I think when you prepare the people under you and you let them, and they show you that they're trustworthy, that's when you let them go and shine and do the things that they were made to do. Right.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And I think that one thing that we hear a lot of times in leadership is that some people will tell you a leader needs to be involved in every facet. A leader needs to be involved in everything. And I don't agree with that. I think that if you're a leader, I think it always comes down to the type of people you bring onto a team, the type of people that you bring on. So, for example, if you always have to look at everything that everybody's doing and you've always got to be in, that's a question of your leadership. Because in my opinion, I feel like a good leader is somebody who can say, okay, I need you to do this task because I picked you for this task. And I'm going to teach you how to do it. But then I'm going to teach you, and once I teach you, you're going to go, opposed to, hey, I'm going to teach you, and every 5 minutes you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I think great leadership also involves trust, where if you're, let's say we're working on a project for the student ministry, and you tell me, hey, I want you to do this. And every second you're jumping in saying, hey, I want you to do this instead. I want you to do this instead. Well, you've just shown me in that aspect that there's no trust between us. And I think that that's a big sign of bad leadership versus good leadership, where good leadership would say, hey, I trust you. I set you up for this job. Just go ahead and do your thing. Now, what that does is that puts a lot of the responsibility on me. So if you trust me and I go, I'm not going to do this project this way, and I do a bad job, well, now all the responsibility is on me. You've trusted me. Now we can go back and look and say, okay, like, I can't trust you anymore, and I thought that you were going to do your job and you didn't. But I think that that's what a good leader does, opposed to trying to micromanage every little bit of everything that everybody's doing.
Absolutely. I agree. And I love, like, if you read the gospel accounts, you see that in how Jesus did his ministry. There was times when Jesus gave the disciples things to do, and they botched it up. Like, I remember he told, like, they were off trying to heal somebody and they couldn't heal him. And they called Jesus, like, hey, man, like, this person is struggling. And he's like, man, oh, ye of little faith. Like, man, haven't I taught y'all enough? Y'all should already be doing way more than I'm doing. So, like, he gave them that space to be able to try to figure it out. And then he'll come back and be like, hey, y'all messed it up, but I'm going to heal this person. And then we're going to talk about why you couldn't do it. So I think that's very wise. I think that's very good, because it gives people under you the chance to grow into what they're supposed to become on your team. So I think that's really good leadership.
So let me ask you, when it comes to like middle schoolers and high schools, what can they do to be good leaders or to show good leadership at this point in their life? Because they're not necessarily above and have whole staffs. They don't have disciples. So what can they do to show good leadership at this time of their life?
I think a very easy way for them to show good leadership is to be a good follower for now. So they're followers of their parents in a sense. They live in their homes. Their parents, your parents tell you what to do. So following their instructions, doing what they say is a sign of good leadership, because you're learning how to follow somebody. And then your parents aren't perfect, so they're going to mess up in areas, and you just learn from what they do, wrong and right. So when you get into a position where you're leading somebody, and when you get into a position where you do become a leader on a football team or in class on a project or a business owner one day, you're able to learn from being a follower how to lead others, because you know how you felt on the other side. So I think the best way for them to be a good leader today is to be a good follower.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. Everybody doesn't go right into that leader role, but you can always show leadership traits. And what was something, let me ask you to kind of end it off, what was something that you did in high school to try to be a good leader? Because I know for me, I wasn't always a leader, but I knew that certain things had to be done. So I really believe that if you're a leader, you got to not practice what you preach, but preach what you practice. And what I mean by that is you cannot be telling people stuff that you're not doing. If you expect people to work hard, you've got to be working hard too, because I don't care what anybody says. a leader who tries to tell you to do stuff that they're not doing is a terrible leader, and they're probably reading a book or watching some movie on how to show good leadership more so than just learning through experience. So what's something that you've learned that's helped you with leadership?
I think there's two things I would say. The first one is hard work. I remember having a conversation with my coach, Mosey Blake. He was my strength coach, and he was also the wide receivers and DBs coach at my high school. And I remember him always saying, man, you and Roger, which is my teammate in high school, man, y'all work really hard. Y'all worked really hard during the summer. Y'all spent more time in the work more than anybody. And people just naturally wanted to follow you guys because you just worked hard and you didn't say nothing and you didn't complain. You just made it happen. And it showed in how we played. Like, it was clear that we were the leaders on the team without even saying a word, because they knew that we were in the playbook all summer. They knew that we were at the beach running sprints. They knew we were running the hills. They knew we were working out twice a day in the weight room. They knew that we were doing extra classes to get in cardio shape. So it was clear by our hard work that we needed to be followed, and people did. People fell behind our leadership. And the second thing was, I remember when I was a senior, my coaches still made me pick up all of the dummies off the floor, all of the blocking dummies, all of the anything that was used on the field that needed to be cleared for PE the next day. They made sure that I was one of the people that did it at least weekly, not every day, but they were like, go pick up the equipment. Yeah. And there was never me saying, man, I'm a senior, man, I've been doing this for 5 years. No, it was okay. And I just picked it up. I put it in the shed and I went home. And I think that showed people that I wasn't above being challenged. I wasn't above following as a leader on the team. So those are two things that stuck out to me.
That's what's up. So again, it's not going to be long, but we just kind of wanted to talk to you to help you learn about leadership, because there's going to be a phase in your life that you're going to have to try to be a leader, or you're not going to have to try. You're going to be a leader in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the business you work for, whether it's a college you go to, whether it's a sport you play. It's better to not have the opportunity and be prepared than to have the opportunity and not be prepared. So if you get these leadership qualities now, you can help yourself in the near future. So that's all we have today, guys. Again, if this brought you some sort of value, like, comment, share, promote it all over social. Remember, it's on all the podcast platforms, and we just want to get this out. If you're a student, middle schooler, high schooler, if you have parents that want to listen to it, if you're a parent and you want to show other parents, let them know, because like always, it's the Real Talk Podcast, which is today's issues through God's Word. Have a great day, and God bless.